About a big problem in Africa, methamphetamine trafficking, certainly on an increase on the continent, according to the latest UN World Drug Report. Now, let's come back home to South Africa. The drug is more commonly known as TIC, one of the most abused substances, especially, it seems, down in the Western Cape. And that's what we're going to talk about. Social Development MEC for the Western Cape, Sharna Fernandez, taking some time to join me this morning down from the mother city. Hello to you, MEC. Appreciate the time. How bad is the situation? When we say it's on the rise in Africa, how's the Western Cape dealing with it? Good morning.
Good morning, Gareth, to you and the viewers. I think firstly, we just need to create the context for the World Drug Report. The focus is on Africa, South Africa, and then the Western Cape. So it's not to say that the Western Cape has a higher prevalence, because when you actually unpack the report, there are other aspects to it. So let me just touch on the African context first, because meth or TIC is expanding in Africa, and the number of countries reporting the use tripled from 4 to 11. So between 2010 and 2021, it's normally a 10-year period, 14 African countries reported the use of meth in that 10-year period. And that is almost a quarter of the 58 countries in Africa. So I think we need to say what is happening in Africa as a continent. And then we also pick up that meth trafficking is on the increase in Africa. So we're looking at the Western Cape. It's probably a destination point, but one needs to understand that seizure of the drugs were reported by 26 African countries in the region. That's almost triple the number of the previous reporting period. So the overall largest aggregated quantities of meth, now this is an interesting stat, seized in the region in Africa in the past decade, listen to this, Gareth, were Mozambique, South Africa, followed by Nigeria. So that talks to a South African problem or challenge.
And MEC, there's been a lot of work that's been done by your department down in the Western Cape especially, which is why I wanted to talk to you, because it is such a big problem. And it seems that you tend to be on top of it. It's a never-ending fight, but you are making some progress as well. Tell me about the fight against this in your province.
Well, the fight is twofold. Closing down drug houses is a policing function. We normally, as social development, would deal with the user, and substance use disorder is definitely on the increase. So the request for services and support, we are proactive in the way we talk to the approach we are taking, but we do have inpatient treatment centers. But before we even talk about what it is we offer, I think the awareness around the danger of using crystal meth, it is highly addictive, and we are seeing younger users of this drug. So it is actually in schools, it's in the neighborhood, it's in homes. So it's a very difficult challenge, and obviously children under 18 we manage, or we can take care of in terms of the Children's Act. But if you're over 18, admission to any center needs to be voluntary. So we have 6 inpatient treatment centers in the Western Cape for adults and youth between 13 and 18. We have 671 bed spaces, which is clearly not enough, but we're working on increasing the bed spaces. And then we have a center which I visited last week called Toevlug, and that they offer a 5-week program. And I must say, I had the privilege of speaking to three of the clients, and they indicated that in 5 weeks, they, with the psychosocial support, the education, and the guidance that was provided them, they're ready to go back into their community and be ambassadors and actually try and drive positive change in their community.
So not just dealing with the cure as well, but going back to the communities they lived in and actually try and make a difference there. And that's what I want to ask as a last question to you, MEC. So the treatment, it looks like you very much on top of dealing with it, providing support, psychosocial, etc. I suppose the big question in the end, though, is how do you prevent, or what's the fight against stopping methamphetamine from getting into the communities? You're dealing with the symptoms after the fact. What would you like to see happen to stop it happening even at the very beginning? Last question, briefly, if you could.
Gareth, I think more active policing and actually closing down known drug houses. There are known drug houses, and you will often hear community members tell you, SAPs know exactly where these drug houses are, and yet they don't get closed. So at the moment, the punishment, it's punitive. We criminalize the youngster, but we don't actually deal with the drug dealer who is putting the drugs out on the street. So we must actually deal with the distribution points rather than the fallout which we are seeing in a generation, which if we don't arrest this, we will actually have a lost generation to this wicked drug called Turkish.
Yeah, it's very, very dangerous. I think anyone who knows what it does to families and does to loved ones knows how serious this is. MEC, thank you very much indeed. I mean, just wrapping it up for us there, I think prevention better than cure, but easier said than done. But MEC for Social Development down in the Western Cape, Sharna Fernandez, raising a couple of good points. My team and I will pick that up with authorities and see what we can do.